Kerri Kenney-Silver, welcome to An Actor Despairs. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
It's so good to have you on. We were briefly just talking. Known your brother for a really long time, and he's such an excellent guy. And your career has been incredible. You know, everything that you've done with the state and then Reno, and now you have 4 seasons out. I'm so grateful for your time, and it means so much you coming on and giving back.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, if it's cool with you, I'd love to start at the very beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Connecticut and New York City. My parents got divorced when I was 8, so I went to school in Connecticut, in public school, the good old public schools of Connecticut, which they're fantastic, I have to say. I was very lucky. And then I spent weekends and with my dad in the city. And I spent summers in Pekin, Illinois with my grandparents and extended family and had just the sort of perfect, well-rounded uh, environments to grow up in. Westport, Connecticut was very sort of J. Crew catalog. And my dad living in the city in the 70s and 80s was a trip.
Yeah.
And then I went to NYU and then stayed in New York. And I moved out to California about 20 years ago, 22, 23 years ago.
Well, let's start from the very beginning. Like, talk to me. Like, I know your dad he did a lot of radio and voiceover work, right?
He still does a lot of voiceover work.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, amazing.
Yeah.
And,
He's the
and
Skittles Taste the Rainbow guy is probably what he's most known for right now. He's the he's the goat, man. He's, he's the real deal.
so it's in the blood. I love that. But obviously having access to New York City, were you exposed to the arts early? Did you kind of feel a draw to it? Like, I feel like when your parent has some kind of inclination towards the arts, it goes one of two ways. You're into it or you're not into it.
I
How,
was into it 1,000,000% every step of the way. I was just talking to someone this morning and I took it for I took it I think I still take it for granted that I just always knew.
mm,
And I know that's not common, and especially to always know that's what you want to do and then actually get to do it is a whole other level of lucky. I just it was never a question. I just like I was just one I never one day said, "Oh, this might be something I'd like to try." It just was always like, "Well, this is what of course I'll be doing." I don't know where I got that ridiculous blind confidence about that, but certainly seeing my dad, I always joke, my dad was the Cocoa Puffs bird, and I always joke, when you watch your father be a cartoon bird and make a beautiful life for himself, what more could you want?
totally.
Um, it's a pretty wonderful life.
I love that. And that kind of like some of the silly components that can go with some of that. Did you feel a draw to comedy early?
Comedy is has always been such a huge part of our family. I mean, humor is the currency in our family for sure. So, yes, always drawn to comedy, always exposed to comedy. My dad especially, we would listen to comedy albums at first, a lot of comedy albums, and then it just was always on, still is. Mel Brooks and, you know, early SNL, still SNL, of course, but yeah, it was just always a regular part of our diet.
Love that. And was stand up something maybe at first you considered doing yourself? Like, did you go to any of the clubs in the city?
No, it's funny you ask that. It's such a different animal,
Mm,
and I bow down to my stand-up friends and still have a little bit of envy in that area. Like, is 55 too late for me to start trying stand up? Because it just is a different beast. And to me, it seems the hardest of the comedy arts, the bravest.
yeah.
But no, I never really had that inkling. I was so in the trenches with sketch comedy and so lucky to be able to actually make a career in that area that it was, and also I was just so and continue to be so um, sort of happily in the middle of this delicious sketch sandwich with all my brothers of the state that it never occurred to me, oh, I should break off and stand on a stage by myself. That just doesn't
Right.
sound as enticing as getting to dance around in a unitard with those guys.
And as we move into NYU in the state, like talk to me, did you, for those listening, did you already have a relationship with some of them before you went to NYU?
Tom Lennon and I met when we were 17 at theater camp at Northwestern University. We were cherubs the summer of 87 and
Amazing.
really just like fell in love as best friends and said, let's do this together forever. And where should we go to college? And now what dorm should we live in? And so kind of went there together. And then we found that this group was having auditions. Tom didn't audition right at first. I did. Michael Black, Showalter, Joe Lutriglio,
This is
Todd
at
Hollebeck
NYU?
started the group. This was at NYU.
Got
Yeah,
it.
Todd Hollebeck started. There was a group called the Sterile Yak that Mo Willems, who's a very, very accomplished children's book author,
Uh,
started. And there wasn't any more room in that group. So Todd Hollebeck started a new group. And the new group was what you know now as the state. And when we graduated NYU and got our own show, we said we should change the name because it means something here at NYU, but it won't mean something in the world. So we changed to just as ambiguous a name, the state.
I love that. So then obviously having all this happen at NYU, was that a really positive experience, your time there?
It was very positive. You know, we have my husband and I have a son. He's 19, and we told him when he was graduating high school, you know, you don't have to go to college. You have to do something. You
Mm,
know, and he is a doer like we are. So he wanted to go to college, which he's doing. But I said based on my experience at NYU, I had some wonderful classes. I had some phenomenal teachers in the experimental theater wing.
is that where you were? ETW?
It was, yeah. I had
I
a
was at Strasbourg.
fantastic experience. Yeah, Strasbourg is one. They're all wonderful.
Yeah.
And I had just a fantastic experience there. But the overall education that I got coming out of that was community of friends and creative partners.
Mm.
And that has lasted a lifetime. And I'm aware that that's very rare, but I also think it's a great place to find your people. And I found my people.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like so much of this business is having a tribe and keeping it creative and keeping each other inspired and employing each other. And I think you guys have been such a testament to making that happen almost on a level that it's just been inspiring to watch for so many of us. When you guys were like graduating, did you kind of have, because sketch, I feel like everyone thinks New York City SNL. Was that where you kind of saw hoping to get a packet in, whether writing or performing? Or
No, I think we thought we were different. And it's interesting. There's a documentary coming out about us. It's premiering at the Tribeca Film Festival. It's called Long Live the State currently. We'll see if the name changes or not. But Michael Pernicairo is the producer director. And so he's been interviewing us for about a year. He followed us. We did a tour last year, a live tour, and he followed us on our last two shows in Austin and in Nashville at the Ryman Auditorium. And watching back some of these interviews, um, it just it strikes me first of all how how long we've been together and on
yeah.
this planet and walking this comedy road together, but also just hearing other people's stories about how the group came about. It's like it's interesting to hear it from other people's point of view,
Totally.
because history sort of, rewrites itself sometimes. But I'm sorry, I can't remember the beginning of your question. I got lost in the path
Oh, I
of
think it was like
memories of NYU.
we were talking about earlier. You mentioned SNL, and then when graduating, like I
Oh,
know you guys
yeah.
had a show, but after graduating, did you want to be employed at SNL, or you seems like you
Well,
had your own?
we did. We had our own thing going. We were very sort of punk rock about it. We really thought this is its own thing, and it really kind of was its own thing. And comedy on MTV was such a strange concept to begin with. But we definitely felt like this is this is new territory. Whether it was or not
Yeah.
remains to be seen, but it probably wasn't. But it felt new and it felt important and it felt like it didn't feel like a stepping stone to us. But I did audition for SNL, and I've been trying recently to remember the year. I believe Janine had just left because I remember reaching out to Janine and saying, "This is something I want to do."
Yeah.
And the year that I auditioned, they ended up not taking a new member, a new female at least.
Wow.
So in the end, of course, obviously would love to have been on SNL, but this is a miraculous, beautiful path that I've been able to take. And the fact that we're still dancing around on stage together and making movies together. And we just have another script in the works. And um, it's, chosen family kind of stuff.
Oh, that's so wonderful and amazing. I'm curious then, when you guys were graduating at that point, you had the show going on. Were you guys at the same time developing other shows in conjunction while that was going on?
No, not at all. In fact, our thought was we will do this together forever. This is what we will do. This is who we are. And it's funny now when I look at my sweet 19-year-old son and think, how could I have possibly at that age and younger thought, these are my people, this is my life, here's what it's going to look like, and actually have been right. Um, it's uh it's it's shocking to me, but I feel so lucky that I landed in that room at that audition on that day.
Yeah. Was Hammercats at NYU at that time yet, or did that not?
Who?
Hammercats is the NYU sketch troupe.
Oh no, they would not have been. I have not heard that name, so
Got
no.
it. Amazing. I guess it's like the NYU
Yeah.
House one now. Maybe it formed later. But then,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm
Well,
curious.
this was 92 we graduated and we started doing the state TV show. So,
Wow. And at that point, did the TV show airing? Because like MTV was kind of like at the like really just at the center of culture at that time. Did it really start to kind of globalize the audience for the state in a way that you probably couldn't have imagined?
well, certainly not in the beginning. Our very first season got horrible reviews. Horrible. We were destroyed in the press. In fact, we made a promo about it, which was us sort of kicking rocks and hugging each other by a lake and crying while I Started a Joke, the song I Started a Joke is playing. And just all of our horrible reviews scrolling across the screen. MTV should be urine tested, New York Times, New York Post. I mean, absolutely destroyed. And yet we took a beat to sort of lick our wounds, and then we somehow worked that into our brains as, screw the establishment, we're going to keep going. And to MTV's credit, we kept going, and then everything turned around, and people, I think the promo itself really uh, gained us some credibility just for how sort of,
I
you
love
know,
that.
brash it was.
I imagine at that time, all the agents were probably coming at your door. Were you auditioning for other things as well? Like, did you have an
Well,
interest?
agents weren't coming out our door because something happened at NYU, which is pretty unheard of, at least at that time. We were doing shows around NYU and around the East Village in live, theaters,
Yeah.
and William Morris came and saw us and signed us as a group.
No
We Now, mind
way.
you, we were 20, 21, and they signed us as a group. So when we graduated, there was nobody in the group that said, "Well, I can't be at rehearsal today because I got to go to this audition." This was it. It was already happening. Our dream of working in the industry, it was like the day after we graduated NYU, we went and signed our contract with MTV and we were off and running. We had already started a show. It was Jon Stewart's first show called You Wrote It, You Watch It at MTV. And we had already done sketches for that show. And
Yeah.
MTV, liked us and said, "Do you want to have your own show?" Which again, kudos to them. But to hire a bunch of kids who have, I mean, I remember our first day standing on a stage. The show was half remote, half live in front of an audience. And I remember being on stage and having to be told, okay, this tape that we're putting on the ground, these are your marks. And, this is going to, now when this light comes on, that's going to be your camera. We were given a television show and had no idea how to make a television show. And I think, you know, we rose to the occasion, thank God, because easily that could have been the nail in all of
Yeah.
our comedy coffins.
Wow. And one of the things that I love so much about sketch is like you have such a great entryway into writing, and so much of like I feel like creating work now more than ever is the theme in this business and keeping things going when you don't have anything going at all. So at that time, were you aware of just like how rare and special the moment was, or was it, you were so young, you just didn't know anything to compare it to?
We were so young, we didn't have anything to compare it to. And also it was sort of like the Wild West of cable television. I mean, they didn't have anything to compare it to. Everybody was just taking their shot. Everybody was just trying stuff out. And we were lucky enough to fall. I've often said, if the state started today at NYU, would we have ever left those rooms? And the answer is probably not. There are so many talented people in the world, which we're now, finding out because of all these new avenues of social media and YouTube and people being able to just blast their material out into the world. I think we would have been lost. And the fact that we were in New York City at that time with this new-ish channel, taking a risk, it was right place, right time.
Wow. Amazing.
But I will pat us on the back a little bit and say we must have been somewhat good at what we were doing, because I don't
Yeah.
think we would still be doing it 37 years later.
Absolutely. And the world thanks you for that. And I'm yeah,
Well, you're
truly.
welcome, world.
No, truly. But as that show kind of winded down, then what did you, when that kind of window closed, where did you want to explore next? Did you guys have an idea of what to do?
Well, we still didn't want to leave each other. Some of us went and did Viva Variety,
Hmm.
which was originally a sketch that we did. It was called the Mr. and Former Mrs. Lopan Variety Program was the name of the sketch when we did it on the state show. And we turned it into its own series. So we did that for Comedy Central, and that began our relationship with Comedy Central.
Hmm.
And that, continues on and on and on, which rolled into Reno and seems to be the gift that keeps on giving for us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, for the audience listening, I mean, everyone loves that show. How did that whole thing come together? Like, was it originally
So Reno it's an interesting story how Reno began, and it's another example of us tripping into the hole of a strange success that we did not see coming. Tom Lennon and I and Ben Grant wrote a sketch show, a sketch pilot for Fox. At the time, they said, we're looking to do sketch, and you guys, haven't been on the air doing sketch in a while. You've been doing Viva Variety. Would you be interested in this? And we said, sure. But there had been a trend at that time of sketch shows sparking up and disappearing. We said, are you sure that you want to
Mm.
do sketch? Yes, we definitely want to do a sketch show. So we wrote a sketch pilot, and we were at the table read for said pilot. We had cast Niecy Nash, Cedric Yarbrough, Carlos Alazraqui, not yet Wendy. And we're sitting at the table read, and the room was dead. And we thought something is going on here, because you were laughing at these sketches a week ago,
Yeah.
and we realized, here we go again. They don't want to do sketch, or they don't want to do it with us. So Tom Lennon, I believe it was Tom, called and said, how about a Hail Mary? We've spent all the money. The sets are built, the money is spent. We have nothing left to spend. We don't do improv, we do written word. But because there's no time to write a sketch, what if we did a improvised spoof of one of the shows that's already on their network? So we called them and they said, sure, yeah, whatever. Okay. So we called each actor and said, whether you've ever done improv or not, pick a name that your officer, we're going to do a spoof of cops, pick a name. We'll have badges made overnight. We'll rent some uniforms and we'll go run around with a camera. And this is probably going to be a ridiculous failure. So we improvised the pilot in character and we handed it back to Fox and they said, thank you, but no thank you. And it sat on a shelf for 3 years until Comedy Central called us and said, hey, do you guys have anything? We've got a slow season. And, we had just done for Viacom, the state, then Viva. So we had a
Yeah.
track record. And we said jokingly, yeah, we've got that pilot that's been sitting on the shelf for 3 years at Fox. And they said, let's check it out. And they bought it. And
Wow.
yeah, so that's how it started. And we thought, if it ain't broke, let's keep improvising this. Somehow this is working. And that's how Reno began. And then the amazing Wendy McClendon Covey joined us later. Um, but pretty soon after that, but not since the pilot. So it was what a stroke of luck.
Yeah, but I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, and I feel like that's so amazing to hear. Talk to me about switching from sketch to improv. I mean, I feel like in sketch sometimes you have to improvise. Was that a new territory for you, or did it already feel pretty like a natural evolution?
It was a completely new territory for us because in the state, we did not do improv. We tried it. We tried little games. Um, when you watch them done by proper improv artists, they're
Yeah,
not little games. They're works of art. When we did them, they were abysmal. So we said that we do not do improv. We can't. We don't know how. We're not good at it. We tried. But when we were improvising in character, um, it was completely different for the sake of story and relationship and something that would go on and develop. It was very, very, very different. It felt like a whole different animal to
totally.
us.
And how do you conceptualize like as this thing gets picked up and you have a season, obviously when you improv, it's different based upon the moment to kind of build an arc, then do you guys kind of like make a treatment for a season and then kind of free form improv along the way?
So there were always outlines,
Mm.
and it's still the way we do it. When we did our most recent film was 2 years ago. We did a Christmas movie, and we will write a treatment that is just sort of bullet point outline. So especially for the films, you need a through line story. The show is essentially a sketch show. There are some overarching relationships, but those came about completely through improv.
Wow.
So, for example, the Kyle Dunnigan character, if you're familiar with the show, he came on just as a guest, and it was going to be a one-off, and he's going to play this Craig Pullen character. And he was something with an ice cream truck, I can't remember. And he and Trudy started, my character started flirting. And so after we shot that, we thought, oh, this could be really fun if she gets a boyfriend. And so we said, would you be willing to come back? And we're kind of dating. So he came back. We did another, uh, just one other, I think it was one other scene in another episode. And we're sort of start dating. But then we thought, he's so good. How about we build more of an arc out of this? And we find out that he's the Truckee River serial killer that we've been talking about. And, I find a foot in his fridge and then he gets, of course, sent to death row and we get married, in the execution room. And then we brought him back to life, because we can do that.
Yeah.
And so we brought him back to life, or I don't know if we can, but we we
You
did.
did.
And yeah, so I mean, it's the nature of improv for us on that show really brought about character development that I don't think we would have found sitting in the writer's room necessarily.
Mm.
Just different avenues open up because of these brilliant actors that are coming in, and our cast is so brilliant. And I mean, people always ask, was it impossible not to laugh? It was impossible not to laugh. It still is, especially because when you really know people well, so this is 25 years of
Yeah.
working together, off and on, you anticipate when something happens, oh, I can't wait to hear what Nisi's going to say about this or what Carlos is going to say about this or Cedric. And you're just sitting there. Wendy won't even say anything, and I'll know that what's coming is going to be brilliant. So it is hard to shoot and not blow it.
I love that. And having, I think it was over 100 episodes that you guys did. Like, as the show goes on, do you start to see other comedy performers that you like that are like, we should bring them on the show? Like Nick Swartzen, for example. Was that another one that
So Nick,
started?
the Nick story is great. So I've known Nick forever from New York when he was a wee lad doing
Wow.
stand up. And Nick, we just had a meeting with Nick and we said, would you want to do a bit in the show? Because it's it's video. We weren't shooting film anymore. So it's cheap and fast, and we're just out in an alley or out in the desert. So if something didn't work, that was okay. Most things ended up working because the Julie Ashton, the casting director, is such a genius and just brought us just the most. I mean, the people we had, it's kind of mind blowing when you read the list of guest
It's
stars we had.
amazing.
Paul Rubens, Paul Rudd, Zach Galifianakis. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. But the way Nick came about, he was an relatively unknown actor at the time, and we just knew how funny he was and said, "What do you want to do?" He said, "How about this?" He was becoming known in stand up, and he said, "I need roll. Here's what I need. I need roller skates. I need like a little half shirt, and we'll just kind of riff from there." And that's another example of a character that just we fell in love with, other people fell in love with him, and it became bigger than the show. So
That's so amazing. And having that show for that long is kind of like, thinking about how technology evolved to like having, things like webisodes started happening. Did you guys kind of in the early days of social media start to kind of experiment with different things to promote the show?
no, we have never done social media. We each have our little Instagram things that are mostly to say, hey, I'm on this next week, or, look what my kid drew. But we're not, I don't know, Tom is more savvy than I am. Ben's not even on social media. And mine is just sort of sits there and I post things every now and then. But no, not at all. But that being said, there has been an evolution. Of course, when we began, we were, tune in television, meaning if you missed it, they would play the episode again, but there was no streaming services. You couldn't
Right.
just call up the show whenever you wanted it. You tuned in to watch. This was 2003. And then obviously, eventually, it got picked up by streaming as well, but that was much later. Um, and we did have to adapt greatly at one point when Jeffrey Katzenberg called and said, I'm starting this new platform called Quibi, and it's going to be TV that you watch on your phone. And we thought, okay, we don't know, this could be the next big thing and he wants us. I mean, what could be better? So we shot a season. This was during COVID. This was like a fever dream this whole time. We shot the season, and because of the lockdowns, all of a sudden, no one was watching anything on their phones because they were
Right.
home in front of their television. So the timing was unfortunate there. But yeah, we've had to adjust. I mean, whoever imagined when we shot the pilot in the year 2000 that we would be watching television on our phones, you know,
Yeah. I
however
mean,
many years later, and that we would have to adjust for that. But it's fun. It's fun to keep the same characters and roll with the punches, and change it up and adapt.
I love that. And was Reno the show that brought you to LA finally?
No, Viva Variety. Michael Ian Black and Tom Lennon and Ben Grant and I wanted to move to LA, but we tend to do everything, as a group. So in our second season, I believe we all said, or third, I don't know, we said we all want to move to LA. Let's move the show. So we moved the show to LA, and we did a couple episodes, big specials in Vegas, which was a blast. And so yeah, so we moved here with the show. We moved the
How
show.
how is that for you guys? Because I feel like the energy and the comedy scene, they're both so different, both in New York and LA and Chicago even. Was that a big adjustment for you guys?
No, not at all because we were together. Because again, we've never really been in the scene. We're sort of
Mm.
self-contained. And so, and we weren't really doing live stuff at that time. If it had been earlier on, I think it would have been a major adjustment, but we weren't doing clubs or theaters at that point. So no, it just was a different black, dark, cold stage that we moved into.
Love that. And at that time, it was such an amazing time for comedy movies. Judd Apatow had so many things going. I know you did role models. Was that something that you wanted to do films more as Reno started to pick up a lot of steam as well?
Oh, I've always wanted to. I feel so lucky that I've gotten to also go on that path. I did also Wanderlust with Judd,
Yeah.
and I did the series Netflix Love on
Love.
Netflix with Judd. So yeah, who doesn't want to have? I mean, the opportunity to work with people like Tina Fey, Judd Apatow. I mean, that's the dream, right? For
Yeah.
me. And I've been lucky enough to have that actually happen.
Well, you've been so incredible as a performer. I mean, talk to me for the actors listening conceptually when, whether it's a sketch or an improv for you, because most people think of characters in kind of the realism and naturalism world. How does it work for you when you just kind of go into it? Do you kind of have an idea of what it's going to be, or do you just kind of figure it out as you go? Because I love the energy that you're able to bring to so many different things. I'm so fascinated by the work that you've been able to do.
Wow, thank you. That's very kind. It's different for every for every project. It's I approach it completely differently, and now I have a little bit of a system, at least how I begin the process. Sketch begins for me all in the body and the voice. Um, if I wish we had footage of us in the writer's room for the state, because Tom Lennon and I would break off and we're sort of I don't know if you'll get this reference, but we would sort of like do mummenschanz. We'd be like wrapping ourselves in toilet paper and doing creature walks across the office, trying to come
Wow.
up with characters. Um, of course, I don't do that when I'm doing Big Little Lies, but when I'm approaching, then for me, this is all for me. If it's sitcom work, if it's Superstore or a show like that, then to me that's obviously more real,
Yeah.
more grounded, but not completely. So there's a heightened aspect to it. So I won't necessarily not necessarily. I will not do character work for sitcom, but it was is toned down certainly from the wackadoodle zany parade that happens in sketch. And then a step further, single cam television,
Yeah.
that depending on the material or the size of the part, if it calls for it, I will do some work, some backstory work, some character study work. And then for something like the Four Seasons, something that is drama, has a drama base as well as a comedy base. Yes, all the actor tools come out of how do I ground this human, um, you know, how do I really live in this person and make you think you know her already.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, I'm curious, for something like Officer Trudy, like how do you keep that alive for so long? Because it was always you were so electric to watch, and I feel like that is something that all of us actors are seeking. And for you to sustain a character for that long, and it sounds like you still get a chance to revisit her from time to time. Like, is that been a great joy of yours?
She is a great joy to play. She's not the greatest person, but Kerri can say that. But while I'm playing her, I can't think that because then I can't play her correctly. But the answer is the cast. The answer is completely the cast. It's electric to be there with those people, and it's just feeds you. The second you put on the uniform is one thing, but when you step into it's fun because we've moved so many times when we do a film or we do the series or when COVID happened and we had to go to a different stage, we now have in storage um, the room that you see where we're all sitting at the table where we do the morning briefings,
Okay.
that room is in storage. So wherever we're shooting, like we shot on the Queen Mary ship when we did
In
the
Manhattan Beach or
yes, when
yeah,
we did
wow.
the Reno 911, the hunt for QAnon. So we built the briefing room on the Queen Mary, but all you see in the film is us in the briefing room. But that's a set to look like the briefing room that's sitting on the Queen Mary ship in the hull. So when
Wow.
we first started the series, we were shooting at the Carson Sheriff Station while they were open. So we would often have to pause filming while they would bring someone in and book them. And so that set that you see consistently is just a recreation of that room.
Wow, that is amazing. And obviously, you've been able to do some voiceovers, which kind of brings it back full circle to your dad. Is that something that you kind of found always you wanted to do, or did that just kind of happen naturally as your career went on?
I've always respected it. I've never fully felt like I've deserved to be there. Similar to stand up, I feel like it's its own animal, and I bow down to my dad and to people who obviously, do that for a proper living. It's something that's just fun that I get to do now and then, and it goes hand in hand with sketch character voices,
Yeah.
so I feel comfortable doing it. But there are people who are way more adept at voice changing than I am, but I do enjoy it. I mean, also, it's a job that you can now do from home or show up in your pajamas. Nobody cares. You don't have 2 hours in hair and makeup, and
Yeah.
you can become a full character. So
And before we jump into the four seasons, talk to me, because like the last 10 years, I feel like most audiences would say we haven't seen comedy at the level that we got to in the early 2000s. The business isn't really allowing those kind of films to be made. As streaming kind of became the presence of culture in cinema, were you interested in working in like some of these shows that were kind of in the more like I know you did Big Little Lies, like was that something that was always interesting to you, or did you want to stay find comedy where you could?
I always have been interested in sort of coming over to the world of drama. I mean, I would love to do a straight drama too someday.
Yeah.
It's just I always hesitate I haven't found the right way to say this yet because there are no sour grapes. I am so grateful for my career, and I realize how lucky I've been to be able to consistently work in the genre that I love. But, I'm greedy, and I studied as an actor, so I didn't study as a comedian. So I have always had it in me. But you do get on a track, and the industry sees you in a certain way, and it's
Yeah.
understandable. Why would we reach in to grab this wacky lady in a wig for our very serious, or you know, even a show like Four Seasons that's a comedy but has serious moments? Why would we reach into this chuckle hat to grab this bonehead when there are great actors out there who we've been seeing doing this all along? So for me, I literally felt like I won the lottery when Sherry Thomas, the casting director, even said, "Come audition for this at all." That felt like the win for me. Someone wants to see me in that way.
Yeah.
At 55 years old as a woman in this career, that felt like a trophy. So um, it has always been in me. And yes, I have always wanted to do it, but I have never sat around woe is meing. I have had a very, very wonderful career.
Yeah, but you've been amazing and you rose to the occasion. So as we jump in, talk to me about the four seasons. So was it Sherry that originally brought you? Did you know Steve or Tina
I
already?
did
Or
not, I did not. I had never met Steve, Coleman, Marco, Will, Erica, Tina. I had never met them before. And obviously, Tina, Tina, Tracy, and Lang. This is their baby.
Yeah.
And Sherry said, I think it came from Sherry, should we see Kerri? And just a credit to all of them that they would take a risk like that, even just to, do have the audition. So
Was that your first audition in a minute? Was it kind of a new thing to go back to that format?
no, no, no. Things did slow down, the strike for sure. And I was busy working on a project with Tom Lennon for the last couple of years. So it's like the audition, yeah, the world of auditions has been slower, and I've been lucky enough as my career has gone on to also have, more offer work, which
Yeah.
is great. But to be honest with you, as an actor, um, I like an audition because like I just shot something for Apple TV last week and or 2 weeks ago, and the thought is always when it is an offer like that, what if I show up and I don't do what you thought you were
Yeah.
getting?
Right.
Because you never have seen me say these words. So an audition for me is pretty great because I feel like, okay, you you know what you're buying, so to
Yeah.
speak. And so it's a little less stress in a way.
That's so interesting because you know what to show up with versus like I don't know what they want necessarily.
Yeah, and on the day when you're standing there in hair, makeup, and wardrobe, and there's 200 people around you, and we need to get to the next shot because we have lunch coming up and we've got to make that time. What if your character choice is not cutting it? That's a scary position to be in as an actor. So I loved auditioning for this, and then I did a Zoom callback. I did it in person with Sherry Thomas, and then I did a Zoom callback with Tracy Lang and Tina, where I met them for the first
Wow.
time, and just it just worked out.
Amazing. And you guys shot in Puerto Rico, right?
We shot 3 months in New York, upstate New York, and
Okay.
then 2 weeks in Puerto Rico. Yeah,
God,
it
how was
was
that
heaven,
to
just heaven.
coming home, so to speak? How did that feel?
Oh, it was, well, it was Christmas time. It felt like Christmas. It felt like a Christmas present. Um, yeah, it's just so gross. I feel gross hearing myself say the words like who wants to hear isn't this so great, but it's yeah, but also I do sort of toot my own horn a little bit that and I toot their horns for taking a chance on me because about 15 years ago, a 55-year-old character actress in Hollywood would really be considering her next move because it was not feasible that you were going to have a TV series um, or anything, even if you were great,
Yeah.
unless you were the leading lady, you were likely destined to become, hold it down in there, kids. I'm the neighbor who you see once every 4 episodes. And listen, that still may be where my career is headed.
I
No,
don't think
no,
so.
no, well, no shade to those.
Yeah, no, of
Those
course.
those are bread and butter parts as well, and thank God for them all. But there are so many opportunities for women of my age now due to, I think, just more content streaming and
Yeah,
also what people want to see. We want to see everybody. We want to see it all. There's many places where we're not there yet as far as representation goes.
for
But I
sure.
feel so grateful to have landed in this timeline where there are opportunities for representation as a menopausal woman that isn't, on the Golden Girls.
Right. It's just so different how it shifted even 10 years ago. And I love that we're able to see these kinds of characters, and I think it's only going to continue to get better. I,
I hope so. I
I,
really do.
I feel like it would be such a natural evolution for you as well as theater, something that you think you would ever
Oh,
do.
I love theater. My dream, and I just keep putting it out, manifesting it. My dream is to do Broadway. I've never
You would
done
be
Broadway.
amazing. We have to
I
make
left
this happen.
I left New York before that was really a possibility with work, with our show, and it's been great. I'm just like I said, I'm just getting greedy at this point because there is a clock, and the clock does tick down. And while I have this much enthusiasm and energy and sort of feel like anything is possible, I want to do it all.
I love that for you. And, talk to me because we've kind of mentioned these strikes and the pandemic and things like that. And, for the audience listening, it's kind of been a very strange time for anyone that's kind of, whether they just graduated drama school or just getting started in the business to kind of figure out how to get started because in-person auditions don't exist anymore. And the
Yeah.
whole business is so fragmented. Like, Reno was on a cable linear network and now everything's on a million different places for the actors listening, and I know this is a difficult question, any words of wisdom you might have for them starting now?
Well, it's interesting you say that, and that actually ties into Four Seasons because, Four Seasons was originally a film by Alan Alda, like you said. Alan Alda became a dear friend of mine when we were filming Wanderlust 10 years ago, and we've stayed connected. And Alan called me 5 years ago or so, and he said, "Would you do me a favor? My grandson is graduating from university with an acting degree, and he wants to start out in the business. And I don't know what to tell him because when I started in the business, things were very different." And I said, "Oh my gosh, Alan, I'd be honored, of course." And I didn't think about it. It was just something on my calendar. And I drove there that day and I got to the restaurant. I sat down and I looked at him and I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to tell you either." Because this we've gone now another step.
Yeah,
The industry is now even different again from when I what do I tell him? Go find a group of 10 friends, decide to work together forever, and then the day after you graduate, get your own TV show
right.
through William Morris. Like, what is that?
When you say it
that
that
was a
way.
lightning strike.
Yeah,
So, but what I did say and what I do say to people is one thing I can share with you from my experience is community and saying yes. Say yes to everything. The person that is your the PA on the set today, in 1 year, 2 years, is making their own short film. And then that gets picked up, it headlines Tribeca, and then they're a big director that you might want to work with.
yeah,
Just make connections, make work, write, just write, even though you don't know where it's going to go or who's going to, and film things together. See, we didn't have these.
these phones.
We had a giant video camera that was David Wayne's father's that when we could borrow it, we would film something on. I mean, if we had had cameras at our disposal, it's this, and I know there's so much noise. I know there are so much out on, everyone's putting out work, which is beautiful, but just keep doing it. Don't wait for the industry to tell you who you are.
Yeah,
Don't wait for them to cast you on a soap opera and then you're that guy. Don't wait for them to say, "You're a Disney kid, you're this." Make your own work, show them who you are.
yeah,
And that way, if you are lucky enough to get picked, and there is enough work for everyone, there is enough work for everyone. Everyone will have a time. You will have your time if you keep working. In between work, get ready. So it may feel like nothing is happening, but what's happening is your next job is brewing and getting ready, and people are talking on the phone about you, but you don't even know it.
yeah.
And they're going to call you and say, "Can you be there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m.?" And you best be ready. So that's my best advice.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it really helps everyone understand that because I think it's easy to kind of get overwhelmed with the
I would say one more. I'm sorry, and it may be the most important thing. And I say this to my son too. Be kind, just be kind and be grateful. Be grateful if you're standing on the set of a student film for the 17th hour. Anytime I am doing anything in this business, I don't care what it is, what the paycheck is, what the hour is. I always take a moment and remind myself how lucky I am to get to do the thing I said I wanted to do when I was 7. Most kids are not, it's a joke, a stand-up joke from Nick Swardson's, one of his old routines. Most people are not walking around saying, I'm a ninja. That's what I wanted to be when I was 7. Well, I am
Yeah.
a ninja. I get to be that working actress, and that's absurd that that has happened.
But you've deserved it. You've been such an amazing talent, and you truly radiate in everything that you do. And I hope you know what an amazing actress and performer you are. I mean, it's just
Oh,
been so inspiring watching your work and revisiting for this. And I'm just so excited for all the other amazing things that are continue to happen for you and Broadway.
thank you. And Broadway, you heard it here first.
What else is next for you?
Well, we have the premiere of Four Seasons. Thursday is the actual event, and then May 1st is the premiere on Netflix. And
Amazing.
I'm just so excited for people to see it. And uh, I I I'm excited for that. But also the state will be premiering the documentary on June 8th at Tribeca Film Festival on
Will
that
you
first weekend.
be there?
I believe I will be there. I believe we will all be there. And yeah, and then we're just kind of, we'll see what's next.
Amazing. Kerri Kenney-Silver, thank you for your time. This has been such a wonderful episode. You're so kind and compassionate, and I appreciate you sharing. It means so much to me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for caring at all. I
Of
appreciate
course, I care a lot, and honestly, I'm just gonna say, let's do it again. Next project, come back by. This was so much
it.
fun.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, so much love.
Thank you.